You're not supposed to, you heard Jim? Huh? You cut the lights off.
Surveillance cameras caught Jim Jones straight up kicking in a locked studio door in the Bronx. And not even a full day later, 50 Cent dropped the footage online. He claimed he now owns the building, calling it a lease termination. And that's when things really started heating up. But nobody saw Jim's fiery comeback coming after 50 started trolling with that clip. On February 20th, 2026, 50 Cent uploaded the surveillance footage to Instagram, and fans went wild. The timestamp showed February 19th, just one day earlier. In the clip, a man could be seen in the hallway kicking and slamming a locked door over and over until it finally flew open, and that man was Jim Jones himself. The caption 50 dropped said it all before people even hit play. The building in the video, that's the IFC Factory, short for Intellectual Factory of Content, right in the Bronx. It's home to the Let's Rap About It podcast, co-hosted by Jim Jones and Fabulous. Things were about to explode from there. That same Bronx spot isn't just a random studio, it's where Dave East and Mayo record, film, and stream their projects. This isn't some side rental. This building is the whole operation for Jim Jones and his crew. But when 50 Cent came through, he didn't just post one clip, he dropped multiple angles from different security cameras, all catching the same wild scene in that hallway. Then he went a step further. He attached a lease termination notice with the footage. It was addressed to Joseph Jones, Jim's legal name, showing that his tenancy had already been cut off. The notice even mentioned a 15-day default from early January 2026 that expired on January 22nd. So by the time February 19th rolled around, the night Jim was caught on camera kicking through that door, the lease had already been dead for almost a month. Talk about receipts. But Jim didn't try to dodge it or drop a statement. He flipped the script. He posted a video of himself in the same black outfit and boots from the footage, doing karate-style moves and chopping wood like a movie hero, while The Last Dragon played on a big screen behind him. The caption sealed it, Kung Fu Jim. Within an hour, that name was everywhere. Memes exploding across Instagram, YouTube, and X. Millions of views, non-stop jokes, and pure chaos online. It felt like the perfect punchline to an already crazy story. This whole mess had been brewing for months. You've got to rewind to where it all started, because this wasn't some random outburst caught on camera. That footage didn't just appear out of thin air. The tension between 50 Cent and the Let's Rap About It crew traces back to late 2025 when the podcast took a jab at 50's work, and he made it clear he wasn't letting that slide. The crew had called 50's Netflix documentary a mockumentary, and that single comment lit the fuse. From there, it just spiraled. Leaked audio, rent rumors, and talk about 50 buying the building all added fuel to the blaze. Then the surveillance footage hit, and by February 20th, 2026, the feud had turned into a full-blown online inferno that everyone was watching. The order of events that one wild day told the whole story. First came the surveillance clips, then the lease termination notice, and just a few hours later, 50 took it up another level. He posted a photo with a man named Sam, who he said was the actual owner of the building. In the caption, 50 flexed hard, claiming partial ownership and writing, "Sam is my partner. I own the joint. Now you're gonna fix every door you kick, or I'm gonna kick you, S. Jimmy. By Monday, you're destroying my property." In just one day, 50 went from clowning Jim online to acting like his landlord. Jim didn't lose his cool though. He hit his Instagram story with a slick line that had fans cracking up. "Give me a second. I'm trying to figure out what I need to promote while I got the spotlight." That move showed he wasn't backing down. He was flipping the moment into promo power. Two men, same footage, but totally opposite reactions. That clash in energy is exactly what made this story explode online. And now we're breaking it all down piece by piece, starting from the very beginning, the moment it all sparked, the mockumentary comment. To really get why Jim was out there kicking in that door, you've got to rewind the timeline, because this beef runs deeper than most people think. After 50's February 2026 post blew up, fans dug in and realized it all started with a Netflix documentary. Back in late 2025, 50 Cent dropped his own doc on Netflix and went all in on promotion. Since he produced it himself, he pushed it hard. During an episode of Let's Rap About It, Jim Jones and his co-hosts watched the doc and then gave their thoughts live on air. That's when they called it a mockumentary. And that word hit different. It wasn't just shade. Calling something a mockumentary means you're saying it's not real journalism, that it's fake, dressed up to look serious like an act pretending to be the truth. Basically, they were calling 50's work a joke. Now, 50 could have fired back with a diss track or some slick interviews, but nah, he did what 50 always does best. He went for the business side. Instead of beefing in the booth, he started posting leaked audio that he claimed came from convos with Sam, the owner of the IFC factory building. In those clips, Sam supposedly talked about how much rent the Let's Rap About It team still owed. The numbers being thrown around were crazy, anywhere from $80,000 to $180,000, and some early posts even mentioned as much as $250,000. That's when people realized this wasn't just a beef about words, it was turning into a money war. 50 Cent's message was sharp, calculated, and cold. He wasn't just reacting, he was strategizing. His vibe was basically, you want to question my work? Cool. Let's talk about your bills. Let's talk about whether you can even afford the room you're sitting in while you talk slick. That became his whole approach, turning money into a weapon, and he swung it relentlessly. At one point, reports came out that Jim Jones had wired around $200,000 to cover some of the overdue rent. Instead of backing off, 50 clapped back with pure sarcasm, saying maybe Jim might turn out to be a decent tenant after all. Then he joked about buying the building outright just to have even more control over them. That's vintage 50, turning a business move into a power play. And he didn't stop there. He started posting non-stop memes, tagging Jim again and again, clowning the situation. This dragged on for months. Then in January 2026, another voice jumped in. Cameron, Jim's Dipset brother. Cam posted memes claiming the studio didn't even have heat during the winter. Of course, 50 jumped right on it, reposting and adding fuel to the fire. Soon the internet had its own storyline, a crew that looked like it was falling behind on rent but still podcasting like nothing was wrong. Jim tried to flip the script by posting a video tour of a bigger, upgraded studio showing off growth instead of struggle. But no matter how he spun it, the topic kept coming back to that same issue: the rent, the lease, the building. And that's what made this phase so key. It revealed 50's true strategy. He wasn't just trolling, he was controlling the narrative, making sure every move Jim made still kept 50's name at the center of the story. 50 Cent didn't treat this like some regular rap beef. He didn't challenge Jim Jones to a versus or drop a diss track. He flipped it into a landlord-tenant showdown, and not just that, he turned it into a story about accountability. Every single post he made was crafted to push one message loud and clear: you're talking about my work, but you're not even paying your rent. That hit hard, and it was all part of his plan. And that framing cornered Jim completely. If he came at 50 emotionally, he'd prove 50's point. If he stayed quiet, 50 kept posting, clowning him every chance he got. There was no safe way out, only escalation or deflection. Then came February 19th, the night everything hit the fan. Surveillance cameras inside the IFC factory caught Jim Jones in the hallway late at night. The lease had already been expired for weeks. The door was locked, and instead of waiting or calling someone, Jim was seen kicking and slamming the door until it finally popped open. Whether he was trying to grab gear, personal items, or prep for a recording, didn't matter. The footage was real, and 50 Cent got his hands on it fast. By the very next day, 50 posted the video and included official paperwork to back it up. The lease termination notice he shared mentioned a 15-day default dated around January 5th, 2026, with a cure deadline of January 22nd. That meant by February 19th, Jim's tenancy had already been dead for almost a month. So if this really was a lockout, it wasn't sudden at all. It was the moment 50 had been waiting to expose, perfectly timed to make the story explode online. This wasn't some random explosion. It was the final act of a process that had been unfolding since October of the previous year. When 50 Cent dropped those clips on February 20th, he wasn't just airing out embarrassing footage, he was closing a chapter in a story he had been crafting in real time for months. Every single post, every leaked audio, every meme, every tag, it all led to that one image burned into everyone's minds. Jim Jones in a hallway kicking through a locked studio door he wasn't even allowed to enter anymore. But the big question now was, what happened next? And what did it say about who really came out on top? The footage alone was enough to hurt Jim's image, but of course 50 didn't stop there. Within just a few hours of posting the clips, he turned the pressure up even higher. He dropped another wave of content, this time not just showing what Jim had done, but staking his own claim in the whole drama. He posted a photo standing next to the building's owner, a man named Sam, and the caption went crazy. 50 wrote, "Sam is my partner, I own the joint, now you're gonna fix every door you kick or I'm gonna kick you, Jimmy. By Monday, you're destroying my property." That line hit like a hammer. In one single post, 50 flipped the entire power dynamic. He went from being the guy clowning his rival online to acting like the landlord himself. He wasn't just mocking Jim anymore, he was claiming ownership of the very building where the whole situation had gone down. For that moment, it wasn't just about rent or clout, it was about control. And 50 Cent made sure the whole internet knew he held it. In just one wild afternoon, the whole story flipped. From Jim Jones got caught on camera to Jim Jones's new landlord is 50 Cent. That shift wasn't accidental, it was surgical. 50's move was perfectly timed and brutally smart. Reports said the podcast crew had been owing serious back rent, with numbers floating between $80,000 and $180,000, and had already been in talks with the landlord since October 2025. 50 had been teasing this for months, joking about buying the building, dropping hints, and laughing it off like a game. But then he claimed he had actually pulled it off, or at least struck some kind of partnership with the property's real owner. Whether that ownership was official or just part of his online flex, nobody could prove it. By February 25th, 2026, no deeds or contracts had been confirmed publicly. But honestly, that didn't even matter. The impact was instant. The internet went into overdrive. The whole feud stopped looking like two rappers trading shots online. It had become a power move in real estate. 50 wasn't just mocking Jim anymore, he was inserting himself directly into his business space. Every time Jim tried to step into that studio, the narrative now said he was walking into 50 Cent's house. Then came that ruthless line, fix every door by Monday. It wasn't just a threat, it was a deadline. A countdown that kept everyone watching, waiting to see what Jim would do. Would he fix the doors? Would he fight back? Would 50 make another post? That ticking clock gave the story momentum, keeping fans glued to every update. And worst of all for Jim, it flipped his role completely. He wasn't just an artist in a feud anymore. He was now the tenant being checked by his own rival. The optics were everything, and that's exactly how 50 Cent wanted it. He's a master at crafting public images that stick like glue, and this time, he painted one that couldn't be ignored. Jim Jones having to answer to 50 Cent's business partner over property damage. That image alone went viral. It was powerful, humiliating, and perfectly engineered. See, this wasn't some random emotional move. 50's got a track record of turning beefs into business chess games. His formula: collect receipts, post strategically, slide in business leverage, and throw in a public deadline for pressure. It's a pattern he's used before, but this time it hit harder than ever because the receipts were real surveillance footage. The leverage was actual property ties, and the deadline came with real repairs. But the genius didn't stop there. The caption on his original post sealed the deal. It read, "Damn bro, this wouldn't happen if we was friends. Wanna be? I don't know. Let's rap about it. LOL." That line was cold. It flipped the podcast's own name into a punchline. And the tone, not mad, not threatening, just playful, almost like he was joking around. But that's what made it sting the most. That final LOL said it all. 50 wasn't upset, he was amused. That calm, confident energy told everyone he was in control. It was the type of move that didn't just embarrass Jim, it made 50 look untouchable. Hip-hop media jumped on it instantly. DJ academics, other outlets, and commentators all weighing in. Some called it peak petty 50, while others pointed out the real business consequences, like lease terminations and potential property claims. Either way, everyone agreed. 50 had just turned a petty beef into a masterclass in public domination. Those clips spread like wildfire: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. Within just a few hours, millions of people had seen them, and sensational headlines were flooding in. Some claimed Jim Jones could face jail time for breaking in, but as of February 25th, 2026, there were no verified reports of any criminal charges or lawsuits. And that detail matters, because what 50 Cent did wasn't a legal strike, it was a social media masterclass. He didn't file a lawsuit, didn't call the cops, didn't serve papers. He ran a digital campaign that hit just as hard as a courtroom move. Every single post built off the last one, stacking piece by piece until it formed a full-blown public case. The leaked audio painted the debt story. The Cameron memes pushed the financial struggle angle. Then the footage came in, showing a locked-out tenant caught on camera. And finally, the ownership photo flipped everything, putting 50 in total control, while that Monday deadline gave the whole saga a ticking clock. What 50 built that day, February 20th, 2026, wasn't just content. It was a narrative with structure, proof, and pressure. He laid it out like a case file. Here's proof Jones couldn't pay. Here's the lease termination. Here's him breaking in anyway. Here's me, his new landlord, and here's the deadline for him to make it right. It was a media strategy disguised as beef, crafted with ruthless precision. And the wildest part, it worked, because the entire internet was watching, reposting, and dissecting every move. But after all that buildup, there was still one final question everyone wanted answered. How was Jim Jones going to respond? And the way he did it, it caught 50 completely off guard because it was the one move 50's entire strategy wasn't ready for. And just like that, Jim Jones flipped the whole tone. Suddenly, he looked like the one having fun. Kung Fu Jim was born, and what started as a viral embarrassment turned into free promo. By the afternoon of February 20th, 2026, Jim Jones's name was trending everywhere. The surveillance clip was plastered all over social media, the lease termination notice with his full legal name was circulating, and 50 Cent had just told millions of followers that he was part owner of the building Jim had just been kicked out of. At that point, most people would have gone silent, maybe called a lawyer or dropped a frustrated post. But Jim, he did something completely unexpected. He posted a Kung Fu video. The clip was quick, 15 to 30 seconds tops, but it was electric. Jim stood in what looked like the same studio, rocking the exact same dark outfit and boots seen in 50's footage. He stared straight into the camera, then started throwing over-the-top martial arts moves, rapid hand chops, spin kicks, and exaggerated wood-breaking gestures. And the best part, on the big screen behind him playing in perfect sync, was the 1985 cult classic The Last Dragon, a legendary film in hip-hop culture known for mixing Kung Fu swagger with Black American pride. That move wasn't random at all. It was symbolic. Jim turned what could have been pure humiliation into a moment of nostalgia and humor. By connecting Kung Fu Jim to a movie so many fans grew up loving, he gave the internet something fun to celebrate instead of something to mock. It was bold, creative, and totally unexpected. A comeback move that flipped the energy in his favor. The caption under Jim's post read, "Kung Fu Jim is what they call him. I need you. Good movie to watch. On this big screen, we got cable. LOL." And that line did two genius things at once. First, it slyly highlighted the studio's setup, the big screen, the working cable, basically saying, this place ain't falling apart like people think. Second, it completely dodged all the heavy stuff, the lease drama, rent rumors, and 50 Cent's name, without ever denying or confirming a thing. Jim wasn't stressing, he was laughing, watching a movie, acting like everything was chill. It was the kind of confidence that flipped the script instantly. Major hip-hop outlets started catching on. Sources noted that Jim wore the same outfit from the surveillance video, making it crystal clear this was a deliberate move. He wasn't hiding from the footage, he was flipping it. What was once footage of him kicking a door open became the foundation for a whole new persona, Kung Fu Jim. He turned the act that 50 tried to use as proof of struggle into a symbol of swagger and humor. That post spread like wildfire. DJ Academics, The Shade Room, XXL, and countless fan pages reposted it, and the views went through the roof. The comments were full of people cheering on his creativity, calling it one of the funniest and smartest clapbacks they'd seen. By the time the dust settled, the internet wasn't saying Jim Jones got caught, they were saying Kung Fu Jim, no locked doors. That's how fast the narrative flipped. Exposure turned into entertainment. And Jim didn't stop there. Later that same day, after 50 Cent posted the photo with Sam and declared himself part owner of the building, Jim hit back again on his Instagram story writing, "Give me a second, I'm trying to figure out what I need to promo while I got the spotlight again." That line was pure finesse. It showed he was owning the moment, turning the spotlight meant to humiliate him into straight-up marketing power. Then came Jim's follow-up, and it made his whole strategy crystal clear. Screenshots started spreading like wildfire, showing his next set of Instagram story posts. One of them read, "This fool promoting me for free. He called the series with Lau. Got it. IFC news coming soon. LOL." It was short, funny, and brilliantly timed. Those three little story slides showed Jim playing the same strategic game as 50, but in his own style. He wasn't denying the footage. He wasn't arguing about the lease. He didn't bite at the ownership claims or the Monday deadline. Instead, he did something way smarter. He reframed the entire situation. To Jim, this wasn't a scandal. It was promotion. Everything 50 had done for months, all the trolling, all the memes, all the posts, Jim flipped it into a marketing campaign that worked in his favor. In his framing, 50 Cent hadn't given him a problem, he'd given him a spotlight. And that's the thing, this move fit perfectly with Jim Jones's public playbook. He's always had that mix of humor, charisma, and quick wit when dealing with drama. Instead of fighting adversity head-on, he leans into it, twisting it into something he can control. But this time, it hit differently because of how fast and smoothly he executed it. Within the same afternoon that 50 dropped the footage, Jim had already posted a response video wearing the exact same outfit from the surveillance footage, created a new persona, Kung Fu Jim, linked it to a classic film that fans loved, implied the studio was still active and well-equipped, turned 50's trolling into free advertising, and teased that new content, IFC News, to keep the buzz alive. That's not luck, that's strategy. Every post, every caption, every move was part of a bigger plan to keep fans entertained, keep the Let's Rap About It brand relevant, and keep himself in control of the narrative. Instead of feeding 50's Feud, Jim flipped it into a marketing rollout, keeping the energy high and the headlines working for him, not against him. By keeping things light and playful, Jim Jones did something clever. He dodged 50 Cent's trap. Any kind of angry clapback would have turned the story into an escalating beef, and staying silent would have handed the win straight to 50's narrative. Instead, Jim found the perfect middle ground. He went funny and fast. That quick humor made him part of the story, not just the target of it. Media outlets called his reaction hilarious trolling and free promo done right. The internet was full of reaction videos breaking down how Jim flipped the narrative from eviction drama to self-promotion. What could have been a bad look turned into a viral showcase of creativity and confidence. By February 25th, 2026, no signs of further escalation had surfaced from Jim's side. No threats, no diss posts, no heated statements. That showed his plan was working. He managed to keep the feud entertaining but not dangerous, staying in control while keeping fans laughing instead of watching things spiral. Now, whether the whole Kung Fu Jim moment actually fixed anything behind the scenes, that's a different story. The videos and memes didn't pay off the rent, and they definitely didn't repair the busted door. And that Monday deadline 50 gave him, it was still hanging there. No updates, no public answers, nothing official from either side. So beneath all the viral fun and Instagram flair, there's still a real situation simmering underneath. Behind the Kung Fu clips, the memes, and all the flashy captions, there's an actual dispute involving money, leases, and property rights, a story that goes beyond social media posts and into the real world where deadlines and documents still matter. Jim might have won the internet that week, but the question that still lingers is, what's really happening with the studio, the lease, and the fallout behind all that laughter? At the heart of all the jokes and memes sat real financial stakes, the kind that can't be fixed with viral clips or clever captions. The IFC factory wasn't just some random studio, it was the main headquarters for the Let's Rap About It podcast, home base for Jim Jones, Fabulous, Dave East, and Mayo. This wasn't a hobby project, it was the engine behind their whole content operation. Losing that space, or even being temporarily locked out, would have been a serious hit to their recording schedule and distribution flow. The money issues tied to the studio had already gone public months earlier. Back in December 2025, after the crew took shots at 50 Cent's Netflix documentary, rumors started spreading that they owed massive back rent, numbers ranging anywhere from $80,000 to $180,000, and some early whispers claiming it could be as high as $250,000. These were big figures, but at the same time, none of them were officially verified in any court filings or public records. Still, there was some truth behind the chatter. Reports say Jim Jones wired around $200,000 at one point to cover part of the arrears, proof that the dispute wasn't just internet gossip. But even after that payment, the exact balance remained unclear. As of February 25th, 2026, the situation was clearly ongoing, and tensions around the lease weren't going away anytime soon. The biggest turning point came with the document that 50 Cent posted online, a lease termination notice addressed to Joseph Jones, Jim's legal name. It referenced a 15-day default notice dated around January 5th, 2026, with a cure period ending January 22nd. That paperwork wasn't just part of the drama, it was the legal centerpiece of everything that followed. It showed that the formal eviction process had already been in motion since early January, and that the chance to fix the issue, the cure window, had expired weeks before the infamous February 19th door-kicking footage was ever recorded. In other words, by the time that video hit the internet, the lease wasn't just in trouble, it was officially dead. Here's where things get legally tricky, because in New York City, tenant law doesn't play around. Some reports and legal commentary on YouTube pointed out that the termination notice 50 Cent posted might not fully line up with NYC's tenant protection laws against what's called self-help evictions. Basically, in New York, a landlord can't just change locks or kick someone out without first going through the courts. Even if a lease is officially terminated, the landlord has to get a court order and work through a marshal's office to carry out an eviction. If someone tries to skip that step, say by locking out the tenant themselves, it could actually count as an illegal lockout under state law. That's true even if the tenant owes rent. So technically, if Jim was still trying to get in the space, he might have still had legal access rights, depending on how far the court process had gone. Some unverified accounts even claim that police were called to the IFC factory after the door-kicking incident and that they may have allowed Jim back in. If that's true, it suggests that law enforcement didn't treat him as a trespasser, which could mean he still had limited rights to enter the studio until a formal court eviction took place. Since then, Jim has kept posting videos and photos showing himself inside the IFC factory. walking through the garage, showing the space lit up and active, and promoting it as a hub for music, fashion, and media production. The question is, how? Was this because he still had legal standing as a tenant? Did he strike a temporary deal with the landlord? Or was he simply moving through a space he wasn't technically supposed to be in? That's the gray area nobody's fully cleared up. As of February 25th, 2026, no one had confirmed the exact legal status of Jim's access to the property. And on the flip side, 50 Cent's ownership claim was just as murky. His post with Sam, the man he said was the building's owner, looked more like an informal partnership announcement than a legal deal. No deeds, contracts, or transfer documents verifying any official ownership or business interest had surfaced in major outlets by that date. So while both sides were flexing for social media, the real legal situation was still cloudy, with neither man holding clearly confirmed control over the property. 50 Cent's ownership claim might be totally legit, but for now, it exists only in the world of Instagram posts, not in any official public record. As of February 25th, 2026, no lawsuits, eviction filings, or court documents had appeared in any major hip-hop outlets to back it up. And that Monday deadline 50 gave, fix every door by Monday? Yeah, that date came and went with no confirmed updates from either side. Whether Jim Jones actually made repairs, whether 50 tried to enforce anything, or whether Jim and Sam quietly reached a deal, none of that made it to the public record. What did hit the internet, though, were two very different reactions. On one side, social media went wild. There were viral posts, reaction videos, and non-stop memes celebrating 50 Cent's trolling and Jim's Kung Fu Jim clapback. Fans loved the back and forth, treating it like one of the funniest, most creative beefs in recent memory. Millions of views poured in as people turned the situation into entertainment. But on the other side, a quieter conversation started forming, one that was less about the drama and more about what this whole thing really represented for independent creators trying to build in New York City. Some fans began asking deeper questions. Why was Jim Jones taking all the heat? Why wasn't anyone mentioning his co-hosts, Fabulous, Dave East, and Mayo, who share the same show in the same studio? Why did the financial and public pressure seem to land on Jim alone? Others pointed out that this story highlighted the real struggle behind independent production in a city with some of the highest commercial real estate costs in America. Running a multi-host in-studio podcast like Let's Rap About It isn't cheap. It requires space, tech, staff, and steady income, all things that can get messy when the revenue isn't consistent. And that's exactly where 50 Cent positioned himself, as the sharp businessman calling out what he framed as a lack of accountability. While others saw trolling, 50 was painting a picture of himself as the one exposing poor business management, turning what looked like internet pettiness into a lesson about money, ownership, and power. So, depending on who you asked, this was either a hilarious viral saga or a deeper look at how hard it really is to keep independent media alive in New York's brutal business landscape. Jim Jones turned every hit he took into a marketing move. Every setback became a moment to flip the story in his favor, but even that clever spin doesn't tell the whole truth. The full picture is this: a podcast crew from the Bronx built something real, something that connected with people. But then they found themselves tangled in a public feud with one of the sharpest, most strategic minds in hip-hop, 50 Cent. Their financial struggles, once private, suddenly became public ammo in a viral showdown that blurred the line between business and entertainment. And by February 25th, 2026, that feud was still unresolved, legally, financially, and operationally. The entire situation sat suspended somewhere between an eviction that never reached court and a social media war with no clear winner. The Kung Fu Jim character might keep fans laughing, and that IFC news coming soon tease might actually turn into something dope, but memes can't erase real rent issues. The bills, the contracts, and the paperwork are still waiting when the cameras stop rolling. At the end of the day, what happens to the IFC factory and to the Let's Rap About It podcast depends on what's decided in offices and courtrooms, not on Instagram stories or viral clips. The cameras caught Jim Jones kicking down a door, but they haven't caught what comes next. And that's where the real story begins. Like, share, and subscribe to stay locked in for more deep dives like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think really came out on top in this battle? And don't forget to check out the cards on your screen for more wild stories and breakdowns just like this one.